Everyone, uh, good morning. Let's start our lesson 3. Today lesson will go through LO3, learning outcome 3. Okay, welcome everyone. We'll start our lesson 3. As you know me, my name is Anjum Satta. Today lesson will go through LO3, learning outcome 3. Please, if you have any question, drop me email and I'll try my best to get back to you as soon as possible. So today lesson LO3, which is know about the critical thinking skill. Critical thinking is very important and we need to be think about, all possible options. Yes, all possible options. So that will help, to be more compare and contrast. Okay, so today lesson key, what is the critical thinking? The skill we need in order to be able to thinking critically are varied include observation, analysis, interpretation, reflection, evaluation, friends, explanation, and problem solving and decision making. Specifically, we need to be able and thinking about the topic issues in achieving the objective and critical way. So if you're doing the research about, let's say, an examination, customer service, customer satisfaction, customer loyalty, so and service quality, you need to be make sure when you're collecting the primary data, and if you're doing primary research, you need to look around the different timings because the maybe you're not looking and the segment of the population you're getting that not represent the view of everyone. So that's one way you can think about critical thinking is about thinking. It's a way to decide if is a claim is true, false, or something true and something false, or partly true or partly false. It can be split into two important areas logically. So we need to look around. C's are cognitive bias, and cognitive bias is when someone make a bad choice that you think is a good choice. C is the misleading argument that might sound true, maybe based on the truth, but is facts false. Yes. So maybe we're saying no, 80% people said, but actually, what basis we collect the data, how we collect the data, who said it, where said it, what sort of the people those were. So always, so we can critical thinking can be observation, analysis, inference, communication, and problem solving. So these steps we can follow. Okay. Let's we'll quickly go through a little video that will help to look around how we can critical thinking and what is the critical thinking is about. Okay, so critical thinking is very important. I'll quickly show you and we'll go through this video. Okay guys, let's please. Okay, welcome. Let's we'll start then. Okay.
Building these critical thinking is all about asking questions. The right questions. Questions that help you assess both the meaning and the significance of claims and arguments. Building these skills and applying them in your life makes it easier for you to assess evidence, evaluate arguments, and adapt your thinking so you stay switched on and engaged in different situations. Critical thinking involves stepping back from a situation to enable you to see all the angles before making judgments or taking decisions. It means identifying the key points, analyzing the sources of information, weighing up different types of evidence, just as a judge and jury would do in a court of law, and putting it all together into your own independent, thought-through point of view. One thing that it's very important to realize is that critical thinking isn't about being critical. And it's about much more than just finding flaws in other people's claims. By itself, that isn't enough to give you an edge. To be a true critical thinker means being creative, reflective, and adaptable, evaluating the evidence to decide for yourself what is accurate, what is relevant, and do I have sufficient information to take a decision on this topic? Thinking critically means taking a stand for yourself. It can be difficult not to be swayed by close family or friends' views on things, or certain beliefs that just feel right. But learning how to use these higher order thinking skills can help you to feel much more confident in your own opinions and conclusions. Critical thinking is also about a sense of discovery and excitement, not only about learning, but evaluating arguments to see how they stand up, and filtering for yourself what resonates as right or wrong. By using these techniques, you'll find yourself becoming a clearer, better thinker. McCat, learn better, think smarter, aim higher.
Okay, as we watch it, so critical thinking is very important in real world. Yes, so we need to be think how we can improve the critical thinking. As we said, we can evaluate things. Yes, so that's the critical thinking. So what is the thinking outside the box? The thinking outside the box is referred to the ability and the approach of the problem situation in the creative, unconventional ways. It involved the breaking the free from the traditional and established ways. Yes. So exploring new possibilities and ideas, looking around, let's say we have which phone we want to buy, what bases we want to buy, what uh, the storage capacity we want, what the RAM will be, and so on. So it's critically you need to be think about, and what will be the price of it. Yes. So this type of critical thinking, all the question, exemption, challenges, and status and risk and experimentation with the new ideas. Yes, sometimes it's cost you as well. The beyond, the obvious and consider alternative viewpoints as well, and solution unexpected, unconventional. Thinking outside the box can be particularly valuable in problem solving. Yes, innovation as can lead to the breakthrough ideas. Yes, approaches that may not have been possible through the conventional thinking. It also be valuable tools for the personal professional growth as encourage individuals to be open-minded, yes, adaptable and creative, in the approach of the challenges, opportunities. So that's we can look around. What I am argument coherence need to be quality. Argument need to be clearly logical and consistent, coherent, and back up the some facts and figures, the reasoning and evidence logically we need to be coherent. Argument should have a clear focus thesis statements. If you're doing research, the reasoning is logical and connected the points with this different in your or your aims, objective, and the literatures and the argument and conclusion. It need to be relevant of that. In order to argument coherent, it should be free contradictions, logical. Let's see, so reasoning and evidence. Yes. Our argument coherence is important. The quality and the effective argument has a help to ensure the argument is a clear, logical, and persuasive. Yes, by presenting coherent. Okay, in summary, what we can do look around the objective refer to the things that can be made or observed are not, influenced by the personal opinion. Yes, feelings while subjective refers and thinking. That's we can look around definition objective based on the facts and subjective based on the personal opinion. Focus external reality, internal reality. Sky blue chocolate is delicious. Yeah, so we can look around verifiability. Yes, and evidence and logics consensus so can be agreed upon. Most of the people are varied views in the light of the various authors. Yes. Okay, thus, we can compare and contrast is objective or subjective. Okay, then we looking to explain what is meant by the term critical thinking. Critical thinking is a process of evaluating information, ideas in thoughtful and unbiased ways in order to make a sound judgment and decision. It involved analyzing information, identifying exemption, and the biases evaluating the evidence and considering alternative perspective in order an informed opinion. It is a core critical thinking is about the questioning, exemption, and challenging the status. We can look around the critical thinking is able to identify the gap in the knowledge. Critical, anyone, any question, please? If you have, you can ask. Huh? Those are listening, drop me email if you think anything need to be further explained. And if you not get me, you can ask, please, always. Huh? Critical thinking is essential skill in many areas of life, including education, business. So by developing the critical thinking, individual become more independent and self-directed. That's, the key. What is meant by the term critical thinking in academic writing? Critical thinking is referred to the ability to analyze and evaluate in systematic and logical ways. Yeah, examine evidence. In academic research, critical thinking is essential to evaluating. You always have a data, you have a counter argument, you draw your yes, and then you draw your conclusion and recommendation, alternative viewpoints. Yes, that is quite crucial. Critical thinking is take part in the research processes, allow the researcher to flow and the weakness existing research and develop the research question and approaches. Overall, critical thinking, an essential skill, academic researcher is allowed to evaluate the evidence and analyze the data and draw the valid conclusion that can be. So explain the evidence, explain different critical thinking skill. There are several different critical thinking skills that are important individual to develop in order to think critically and make informed decision. Yes. Analysis is the ability to break down the complex information into the small part, examine the parts in detail. Yes, we can look around the different pieces of information. Interpretation is the ability to make the sense of the information, understand the meaning. Inference is the ability to draw the conclusion based on alternative evidence. Evaluation is the ability to assess the quality and reliability of the information. This involve, evaluating credible source. So when you evaluating who is saying it, it's how latest, like within 5 years, the information and the journal article is a 5 star. Is what is the credibility of that journal, strength and the weakness of different argument. Explanation, ability to communicate ideas, yes, clearly and effectively, and we need to look around able to articulate one thought, ideas in logical and coherent manner. Reflection, always reflect, ability to reflect on one own thinking and the learning process involve the self-aware and recognition one own biases exemption. So senses is the ability to combine different piece of information to form a new idea or the perspective. Yes, involve being able to connect the different ideas and the concept in creative and innovative ways. Yes, that's we can developing these critical thinking skill takes practice and the patience, but can lead to the better decision making, problem solving, and communication ability. By owning these skill, individual can become more effective in their personal and professional lives. Yes, that's we can look around. Then we have a 3.3, examine any critical thinking is important in academic writing. Yes, critical thinking is essential in academic research and academic writing because it's allow researcher to evaluate the information idea rigorous and systematical ways. Maybe someone found what the result were, other researcher what found, what their commonalities, and then you can look around what is not. Yes, researcher goal to produce the knowledge accurate, reliable, and valid. Critical help researcher to achieve the goal, enabling them. Identify the bias and the exemption. Critical thinking allow researcher to identify biases and exemption that may affect the research. So this research is based on the local area. For suppose a future researcher can be, maybe we pick the random sample as the conveniently. So we need to be think about that can be bias. Maybe the people like you ask the question, minimize the impact of the research and produce objective and eval. So we need to be looking on evaluate evidence, critical thinking, enable researcher to evaluate the evidence, determine the researcher credibility, validity, And by evaluating the evidence rigorously, researcher can ensure. So we need to be make sure the information is more reliable, more up to date, more yes, and is valid. Yes, because sometime information can be outdated. So in the research, we need to be make sure with that information you have, and you evaluate it. Consider alternative perspective, critical thinking help researcher to consider alternative perspective, different perspective, maybe in different industry, we can use the information on exemption by their own views based on someone else's views and adding and draw own conclusion by examining the issues at multiple angle. Researcher produce more and the comprehensive understanding about the topic and research. Okay, identify the gap in the knowledge, critical enable researcher to identify and the gap and the knowledge and formulate the research question that address these gaps. By falling into the knowledge gap, and researcher can make the meaning contribution and look around to communicate the finding effectively. Critical thinking help to researcher. You can look around the communicate the effective. You can hear, please, you can think about 7 C's of communication as well. Is complete, is concise, yes, and its consideration, and thus your 7 C's you can, it's a clear message, yes, lasting impact. And overall the critical thinking is essential academic research because this helps researcher to produce accurate, reliable and valid finding and contribute our understanding the world around us. Yes, by the critical thinking and the researcher can make the meaningful contribution, huh? That's we need to be think about. Explain how we can apply evaluate argument. Evaluate argument involve assessing the quality and validity of the reasoning, evidence, and some technique that can be used to evaluate the argument. So we can evaluate the argument, identify main claim, and starting identifying the main claim. We said, people like if the price drops, what basis we are saying people like the things are based on the quality, or people like referral scheme. So we can these the statement we can test it, we can argument, yes, we can evaluate them in the light of the various, and we can check in term of the in the primary data as well. Identify the evidence, look evidence through sport main claim, and these claim in fact statistic expert testimony and various. Assess the credibility of the evidence, evaluate and credible evidence presented. Consider the source of evidence, identify the exemption, look any exemption that underlie the argument. Yes, these are we need to be believe, and we can look around. Evaluate the logical argument and consider the argument follow the logical structure. Look any flaws in the reasoning and such as the errors and the evidence. Yes, faulty. Consider the alternative viewpoint, thinking about alternative viewpoint, the might challenges an argument, and think about strength and weaknesses. Look around the draw conclusion based on the evaluation argument and draw. Yes, consider whether the argument is convincing or whether the support by the strong evidence, and overall evaluate an argument involve careful analysis. And number one, identify the main claim that the yes made the research. For example, claim may be that iPhone 14 Pro is the price competitively in market. Identify, look at the evidence that the sports claim and could include the iPhone 14 Pro sales and pricing trend as well comparative pricing data of the high-end smartphone users. So assess the credibility of the evidence, evaluate yes, evidence presented, source of data, and whether the reliable and relevant argument. Yes, identify the exemption and look at the exemption underlie the argument. And for example, research maybe assume the iPhone Pro is the price competitive compared to the high-end smartphone. So we can look around uh, this example. Yeah, that will help us to consider more is it critical thinking. Yeah, logical argument, consider the argument is the logical structure and look the flaws such as error in the use of evidence. So consider the alternative viewpoint. About the alternative viewpoint might be challenges and argument, and the researcher might not consider the impact on the supply chain description, the market factors, and the iPhone Pro pricing. Drop the conclusion based on based on the argument and draw the conclusion, validity, and reliability. So by applying these techniques, evaluate the argument that decide the pricing iPhone 14 can be assessed, strength and the weaknesses of argument, and well reasoned, and draw the conclusion and validity and credibility of that. This is quite good example, guys. So it's go through when you do your research and how we can compare according to your topic. And those are the key reference we use in these argument. Always the reference we can look around more update and more accurate and more relevant to that topic. And today lesson we cover our LO3, which is critical thinking, and next lesson we'll go through LO4, learning outcome 4. Thanks for attending and listening. Hope so. I'll speak you during our next lesson. Thank you. Bye bye.